The great city of Relia Prime was burning. Flames climbed the crystal towers, turning the beautiful blue glass into dripping, molten rivers. The air was filled with the deep rumble of explosions, and the sky swirled with black smoke. High above, the Vorkesh swarm blotted out the sun, living ships shaped like jagged claws, their hulls glistening like wet bone. They were everywhere, feeding on the city, ripping apart defense stations, dragging civilians away in writhing nets of organic cables. In the Krylin Union Council Hall, panic was spreading like wildfire. "Councillor Wren, we must surrender," shouted a pale-skinned delegate, his voice breaking. "The swarm does not leave survivors. We cannot win." Councillor Wren slammed his clawed hands on the table. "If we surrender, they will consume our people just the same. Surrender is death. Fighting is death. Either way—" He stopped, his voice catching, and looked around at the gathered councillors. "Either way, we are finished." The silence in the hall was heavy. Every face, every set of large, dark Krylin eyes was filled with the same thing: fear. Not the kind of fear that came before battle, but the kind that came when you already knew the outcome. Then, Admiral Siva spoke. She was old, her scales dull, her voice slow but steady. "We are not finished yet," she said. "We can still call for help." "Help?" scoffed a younger councillor. "From who?" "The Turian Compact already refused to send ships. The Makari. Republic said they would monitor the situation. The Senari closed their borders entirely. The swarm has been hunting for centuries. No one dares to fight them." Seva's gaze hardened. "Then we call everyone. We send the signal to every star, every station, every moon. If there is anyone out there who can hear us, they will know our need." Wren frowned. "And if the swarm hears it too?" The Admiral gave a bitter smile. "Then perhaps they will choke on our desperation." The signal went out. It was the most desperate broadcast the Krylin Union had ever sent. A cry of pain sent across every known communication band, pulsing through jump, relays, bouncing off deep space beacons. "This is the Krylin Union. Our worlds are falling. The Vorkesh swarm has broken through our fleets. We ask for aid from any who can give it. We offer what little we have left. Please, hear us." For hours, the council sat in silence, listening to the hiss of empty channels. No one replied. The Turian Compact sent a cold refusal. The Makari Republic said they could not risk valuable resources. Most didn't answer at all. Day turned to night. Outside the council hall, the war raged on. Entire districts were swallowed by the swarm's crawling machines. Families fled into the tunnels beneath the city. The skies trembled with the sound of alien weapons. By the second night, hope was dying. Councillor Wren sat in his private chamber, staring at the glowing map of Krylin space. It was a sea of red markers now, each one a destroyed fleet, a burning city, a lost colony. His claws tapped slowly on the table. The door hissed open. Admiral Seva entered, her face unreadable. "You should rest," she said quietly. "Rest?" Wren gave a short, humorless laugh. "Rest while our world is eaten alive? I think not." They stood in silence for a moment. Then a small light blinked. On the table, a single green icon. Wren frowned. "A transmission?" Seva stepped forward, adjusting the console. "It's not from any known ally. No registry code, no diplomatic ID." The speaker crackled. A voice, deep, steady, and oddly rough, spoke in a language the translator could barely keep up with. "We heard you. We're coming." The message ended. Just 5 words. The 2 Krylin leaders stared at each other. "That's it?" Wren asked. "No name? No coordinates?" Seva slowly replayed the signal trace. Her eyes widened. "Wren, this came from the E-47 exclusion zone." His blood ran cold. "That region is empty, uninhabitable. The ancient maps call it a death world. The next morning, the council gathered again. Seva explained what they'd found. The signal had originated from a small blue planet called Earth, buried deep in the exclusion zone. It was an old, abandoned classification, one the galactic archives marked as incompatible with intelligent life. According to the records, Earth's gravity was heavy enough to crush weaker alien species. Its oceans held predators larger than starships. The land was filled with plants that poisoned, animals that hunted for sport, and weather that could kill within hours. How could anything live there? One counselor muttered. Not just live, Seva said, but send starships. The room fell into uneasy whispers. Ren cleared his throat. Perhaps they are not coming to help. Perhaps they are scavengers, seeking our remains. Seva shook her head. The voice said they were coming, and it was strange, calm, as if this swarm did not frighten them. One counselor laughed bitterly. Then they are fools. No one else laughed. 2 days later, the swarm broke through the last orbital defense line. From the observation decks, Krylon citizens watched the sky fill with Vorkesh carriers, living ships with wings like stretched skin, their hulls twitching with muscle. The city shook as their weapons struck. Inside the council hall, Ren was speaking to Seva when another light flashed on the console. Another transmission, Seva said. The screen lit up. This time there was video. A humanoid face appeared, pale skin, sharp eyes, a short-cut mane of dark hair. The being wore a black uniform with no insignia the Krylon recognized. Behind them, the hum of machinery, the dim glow of red lights. This is Captain Aria Holt of the UNS Vigilant, Krylon Union. You called for help. We answer. Her voice carried no fear, no hesitation, only certainty. The counselors stared, barely breathing. You should know, Holt continued. We are not part of your galactic concord. We are not here for diplomacy. We are here to remove your problem. Efficiently, permanently. One counselor tried to speak. And what will you demand in return? Holt's mouth curved in a cold half-smile. We'll discuss that when you're safe. The screen flickered off. High above Krylon Prime, the first human ships emerged from folded space. They were nothing like the sleek curves of Turian craft or the organic shapes of Makari vessels. These ships were sharp-edged shadows, built for war and nothing else. Black hulls drank in the starlight, bristling with weapons the Krylon sensors couldn't identify. No visible markings, no broadcasting beacons. The swarm turned toward them, sensing new prey. And yet, in the council hall, Admiral Seva allowed herself a small, rare smile. They came, she whispered. Ren swallowed. Yes, but will they save us? Outside, in the cold void, the Deathworlders were already moving. The Krylon people had never seen ships like these. They did not shine. They did not display banners. They did not carry the polished beauty of ceremonial fleets. The human warships looked like blades carved from the darkness of space itself, long, angular, covered in black armor that drank the light. Every surface seemed to hide weapons. From the largest vessel, the UNS Vigilant, a smaller craft descended toward Krylon Prime. It was shaped like an arrowhead, moving with slow, deliberate grace through the burning sky. The swarm noticed it immediately. Several Vorkesh fighters broke formation and rushed toward it, their bone-colored hulls splitting open to reveal rows of living spines ready to fire. The arrowhead ship did not turn away. Instead, a faint shimmer passed over its surface, like heat rippling in the air, and the human vessel vanished from sight. Seconds later, the Vorkesh fighters exploded, their twisted remains falling into the city below. No sound reached the ground, only the flashes of light and trails of smoke. In the Krylon Council Hall, the delegates watched the feed from their orbital sensors. Counselor Wren's throat was dry. Where did it go? Admiral Siva answered, without looking away from the screen. It didn't go anywhere. It's still there. They're cloaked. The room went silent. The human shuttle reappeared directly above the council district, lowering itself between the burning towers. The ship landed on the plaza with a heavy thud, its landing struts crushing the crystal tiles beneath. A ramp descended, and armored figures emerged. They were tall for humanoids, their movements precise and efficient. Their armor was a mix of matte black plates and flexible dark fabric, built for speed and survival rather than ceremony. Strange symbols were painted in faded white along the plating, battle markings perhaps, or personal signatures. Each soldier carried a weapon that hummed faintly, the kind of sound that made even experienced warriors feel uneasy. At their head walked Captain Arya Holt. Without a helmet, her sharp, pale face was visible, framed by cropped black hair. Her eyes were cold and unblinking, scanning every detail of her surroundings. The Krylon guards shifted nervously, their clawed hands twitching near their sidearms. Holt didn't seem to notice. She stepped forward, stopping before Admiral Siva and Counselor Wren. We need full tactical data on your enemy, ship types, fleet movements, planetary positions, everything you know about the Vorkesh. Wren found his voice. And you believe you can defeat them? Holt's gaze fixed on him like a targeting scope. I don't believe. I plan. The humans were escorted into the council war room. Massive holograms of the star system glowed above the central table, showing red markers where the swarm fleets were moving. One of Holt's officers, a dark-skinned man with a heavy accent, studied the map. They're spreading too fast, he muttered. Classic envelopment pattern. They're expecting you to defend your homeworld directly. Siva frowned. You think we shouldn't defend it? Holt shook her head. That's exactly what they want. The swarm wants you to gather your forces here so they can crush everything in one strike. We don't play their game. We make them play ours. She tapped the map, highlighting several Vorkesh supply nodes. We'll hit them where they're weakest. Supply lines, breeding ships, communication hives. We cut the head off the swarm before it reaches you. Wren stared. But you're outnumbered 20-1. The human commander smiled faintly. They don't know what 20-1 means when it's us. Hours later, the Krylon public watched from the safety of the underground shelters as the human fleet moved into action. The UNS Vigilant and its sister ships didn't form a traditional battle line. Instead, they scattered into the dark, each one vanishing behind stealth fields. Krylon sensors struggled to track them. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. From orbit, Krylon commanders saw flashes, bright bursts of light where swarm carriers suddenly erupted into fire. No approach, no warning, just destruction. One by one, the swarm's outer fleets began to falter. Without supply ships, their bioweapons ran out of fuel. Without breeding vessels, reinforcements stopped. Arriving. The Krylon officers stared at the feeds, whispering among themselves. They fight like ghosts, one said. Not ghosts, another replied, eyes wide. Predators. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the UNS Vigilant, Holt stood with her hands clasped behind her back. Status? She asked. Enemy Hive Carrier 6 neutralized, her sensor, officer replied. Hive Carrier 7 disabled. Remaining fleets adjusting course. They're confused. Good, Holt said. Let them be confused. Confusion keeps them alive long enough to make mistakes. She turned to her second-in-command, the same officer who'd studied the Krylon maps earlier. Major, you take the Raven and intercept their relay ship before they can call for help. Yes, ma'am. As the major left, Holt's gaze returned to the viewport. The swarm ships moved in jerky, angry patterns like a hornet nest someone had kicked. She smiled thinly. You've been the hunters for too long, she murmured. Time to learn what it's like to be hunted. Back on Krylon Prime, Admiral Seva watched the battle reports roll in. In her long career, she had never seen a war fought like this. Humans did not engage in grand, sweeping clashes. They struck from nowhere, disappeared before the enemy could respond, then struck again from a different angle. They never fought where the enemy expected them to be. Every time the swarm tried to regroup, they found their ships crippled or destroyed. Every time they tried to advance, they ran into mines, ambushes, or sudden collapses of their own communications. They're dismantling the swarm piece by piece, Seva whispered. Counselor Wren, standing beside her, shivered. I believe they're enjoying it. 3 days into the campaign, the Krylon people began to hear rumors. Civilians whispered about human soldiers appearing in the ruins at night, pulling survivors from under collapsed buildings, leaving without a word. Swarm scouts reported hearing human voices echoing in the dark. Sometimes just before their ships were destroyed, the name Shadow Armada began to spread. No one knew if it started among Krylon refugees or the terrified swarm survivors, but it stuck. And still, the humans asked for nothing. No payment, no promises, not even public thanks. The only message the Krylon Council ever received from Holt during those 3 days was a single line of text. We'll keep them busy. Get your civilians underground. On the 4th night, the Vorkesh swarm changed tactics. Instead of spreading out to consume more territory, they pulled together, forming a massive central force. The Krylon sensors trembled at the sheer size of it. Hundreds of carriers, thousands of smaller ships, all moving in a single wave. The wave was headed directly for Krylon Prime. In the council hall, panic returned. Wren gripped the table. It's over. They're bringing everything they have. Even your humans cannot fight this. Admiral Seva didn't answer. She was looking at the incoming transmission alert. It was from Holt. Her face appeared on the screen, calm as always. They're coming for you, she said simply. Good. We've been waiting for that. Before anyone could respond, the transmission ended. Far above the planet, hidden in the black between the stars, the Deathworlders prepared their trap. The Vorkesh armada was moving like a single living creature, a massive black tide cutting through the stars. Every sensor across Krylon space tracked their advance. Even in the deep shelters under Krylon Prime, civilians felt the tremor of fear ripple through the air. The council hall was tense. Counselor Wren's voice shook as he looked at Admiral Seva. They're bringing everything. That wave will crush us. Seva didn't answer. She was watching the battle map with cold eyes. Human icons, small blue markers, were scattered, far from the swarm's path, barely visible among the stars. They're too far away, Wren said. The humans are not even here to defend us. Seva gave him a sharp look. You still don't understand. They never meant to defend us by standing still. In the blackness beyond the Krylon system, Captain Arya Holt stood on the UNS Vigilance bridge, her crew working quietly around her. The swarm's formation glowed on the main screen, a red mass against the darkness. Confirm enemy heading, Holt ordered. Confirmed, her navigator replied. Projected arrival at Krylon Prime in 36 hours. Holt's lips curved in the faintest smile. Right on schedule. Her second-in-command, Major Kaito, stepped closer. The bait worked. They've abandoned the outlying systems. Good, Holt said. Without their outer fleets, their supply chain is bleeding. Now we cut the vein completely. She turned to her operations officer. Deploy Phantom Wing. No survivors. The officer nodded, sending coded orders across the fleet. Phantom Wing was unlike any fleet the Krylon had imagined. These were small, needle-shaped strike ships, faster than anything the swarm had faced before. They didn't move in formations, didn't announce their presence. They simply appeared out of the darkness, fired, and vanished again. The first target was a massive breeder ship, a living factory the size of a small moon. Inside its fleshy hull, Millions of swarm spawn waited to hatch. The humans didn't attack with brute force. Instead, they slipped close under heavy cloak, avoiding the living sensors that grew from the breeder's skin. At exactly the right moment, they launched a single, sleek torpedo. The weapon didn't explode. It burrowed into the breeder's flesh, disappearing from sight. Minutes later, the ship began to convulse violently, its organic hull tearing itself apart from the inside. By the time the swarm realized what had happened, the Phantom Wing was already gone. Elsewhere, human saboteurs boarded a swarm relay station. The Vorkesh crew hissed and clicked in alarm as the lights died, their biological, walls oozing in confusion. The humans moved like shadows, their armor blending into the organic corridors. Silenced weapons coughed softly, each shot dropping a swarm soldier without sound. In less than 5 minutes, the humans had planted charges and vanished. The station erupted into a silent ball of fire, severing communications between half the swarm's fleet. On Krylon Prime, Admiral Siva was getting the reports. She could hardly believe them. In the past 12 hours alone, humans had destroyed 2 breeder ships, 4 supply hives, multiple relay stations, several fleet tenders carrying fuel. The swarm was still moving toward Krylon Prime, but their advance had slowed. Their formations were breaking apart. Some ships were doubling back to search for the unseen attackers. Counselor Wren leaned over the holographic map, eyes wide. They're tearing the swarm apart without ever fighting them directly. Yes, Seva said quietly. That is how predators hunt. For the humans, the Shadow War was not about honor or glory. On the bridge of the Vigilant, Holt briefed her officers. We don't give them a target, she said. We give them a nightmare. Every time they think they're safe, we strike. Every time they regroup, we take something else away. I don't want them to fear our weapons. I want them to fear the space between stars. Her crew understood. They had been Deathworlders all their lives, raised in a place where survival meant adapting faster than the thing trying to kill you. The swarm might be dangerous, but danger was the natural language of humanity. The swarm began to make mistakes. In one sector, a Vorkesh carrier turned on its own escorts, mistaking them for cloaked human ships. In another, a fleet abandoned its position to chase a false distress signal, a recording planted by human scouts. The fleet flew directly into a minefield hidden inside an asteroid belt. The Krylon military watched in disbelief as the unstoppable Vorkesh seemed to lose. All discipline! This shouldn't be possible, a Krylon strategist muttered. The swarm is older than our civilization. They've never been outmaneuvered like this. Siva's eyes were fixed on the shifting red icons of the enemy fleets. They've never fought Deathworlders before, but the swarm was still vast, and their hunger was endless. Despite their losses, the main armada pressed forward, slower now, but still coming. On the Vigilant, Holt studied the tactical screen. The main swarm force was within 2 days of Krylon Prime. Behind them, human sabotage had left a trail of crippled ships and burning hives. Kaito stepped beside her. We can keep cutting them, but eventually they'll reach the planet. I know, Holt said. That's when we close the jaws. She pointed to a region of space ahead of the swarm's path, a binary star system where 2 suns circled each other in a violent dance. The gravity between them twisted space, creating deadly currents. This is where we finish them. Humans began preparing the battlefield. Cloaked drones seeded the system with gravity mines, devices that could drag a ship into the unstable orbits of the twin suns. Stealth frigates positioned themselves in asteroid shadows, ready to push the swarm where they wanted them to go. It was a trap unlike anything the Krylon had seen, using the stars themselves as weapons. From the Krylon command bunker, Admiral Seva listened to Holt's plan. You're going to fight them in that system? Seva asked. Holt's voice over the comm was calm. Not fight. Feed them to it. The Vorkesh armada arrived exactly as predicted. At first, they didn't notice the human presence. The binary system's chaotic gravity made sensors unreliable, and the swarm had grown careless from chasing an apparently fleeing enemy. Then, the vigilance struck. A sudden barrage of torpedoes ripped into the swarm's leading ships, forcing the rest of the armada to adjust course. In doing so, they drifted closer to the twin suns' unstable orbit. The humans hit them again, this time from the opposite side. Panicked, the swarm tried to regroup and ran straight into the path of the gravity mines. One by one, the massive living carriers were dragged toward the twin suns, their hulls tearing under the strain. Entire fleets vanished into the blazing light, their screams carried as static over the comms. From Krylon Prime, the battle looked like two great fires merging in the night sky. Counselor Wren stood beside Seva, his voice hushed. They're destroying them all. Seva didn't reply. She was watching the human fleet move with cold precision, striking only when necessary, her mind replaying the words Holt had said before. We don't believe. We plan. As the swarm died in the twin suns' grasp, Seva finally understood. This was not just a rescue mission. This was extermination. When the last of the swarm ships broke formation and fled, the humans did not pursue. They let the survivors carry the story back into the dark corners of the galaxy, that the swarm had been hunted, that a predator even greater than them walked among the stars. On the Vigilant, Holt stood silently, watching the battlefield fade into quiet space. Status? She asked. Enemy retreat confirmed. We hold the field, Kaido said. Good, Holt replied. Send the council our report, then set course for the next target. The next? Kaido asked. Holt's eyes were still fixed on the stars. The galaxy is big, Major, and there's always another cry for help. The galaxy had expected a small human escort fleet. Instead, a full strike group arrived, bristling with weapons and technology the alien factions thought impossible for such a young species. The Kravik War Council sat in silence as the first human ships entered their sector. They had been preparing to crush the Hrax invaders, but now they were told to stand down until the Deathworlders arrived. They thought Deathworlder was just an insult until they saw the ships. The flagship, HSS Valiant, moved like a predator through space. Its black hull swallowed starlight, its engines burned cold blue, and strange rail-like weapons lined its sides. Every alien sensor trying to scan it failed. The data came back corrupted or blank. On the bridge, Captain Serena Holt watched the holographic map. Hrax forces still holding position at the edge of the Chiral Belt, her tactical officer said. They're waiting for us to move first. Good, Holt replied, her voice calm. Let them wonder. The Kravik Reaction Admiral Thoran of the Kravik fleet was furious. Human, he hissed into the comm. We called for aid, not for you to take over this war. These are our colonies under attack. Serena's voice was steady but sharp. Then, protect them. But from what I've seen, your fleets have been losing for 6 months straight. You wanted help. You have it. If you don't like my methods, pull your ships back and watch. The comm cut before Thoran could reply. The Kravik crew stared at each other. No species had ever spoken to them like that. Not even the Hrax dared. Inside the Hrax command ship, the Hrax overlord, scaled and towering, sat in his war throne as his sensors reported the newcomers. Deathworlders, one officer said nervously. We thought them a myth. They destroyed the Canthus Empire in 3 days. The overlord's slit-pupiled eyes narrowed. They are still only flesh and bone. No one resists us forever. Prepare the swarm. But his second-in-command whispered a truth few dared to speak. The humans do not fight fair. They fight to win. The first engagement. The Hrax sent a wave of 30 warships toward the humans, thinking numbers would overwhelm. them. But the Deathworlders didn't form a defensive wall like other species. They advanced. Serena's voice rang over the fleet comm. Target their command relays. Ignore their weapons until they're blind. The first railgun volley fired. Slugs, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, punched through Rack's ships like paper. No energy shields could stop them. The kinetic impact alone ripped hulls apart. The aliens watching from safe distance gasped as entire Harak's cruisers went dark after just one hit. The boarding. When 3 Harak's destroyers tried to retreat, human ships didn't chase with guns. Instead, they launched small, black darts, stealth boarding craft. Within minutes, the destroyers stopped transmitting. Later, they were towed back toward the human fleet, now flying human flags. The Kravik commanders were speechless. "They stole enemy warships in the middle of battle?" one whispered. "No," Admiral Thorin said quietly. "They took them." The message after the battle, Serena opened a public channel, one that the entire sector could hear. "Harak's overlord," she said, "you entered this war for conquest. You will leave with nothing. From this moment, every world you attack will be defended, not just by humans, but by anyone who refuses to bow to you." The overlord's reply was a hiss. "You are few. We are many." Serena's lips curled into a cold smile. "Then we'll make you fewer." The turning point. For the first time in decades, the Harak's war machine slowed. Their scouts avoided sectors with human presence. Rumors spread through the galaxy that the Deathworlders didn't just fight, they changed wars, alien. Species that had once mocked humans now sent envoys asking for alliance. Some came out of fear, others out of respect. But Serena knew it wasn't over. The Harak's would regroup. They always did. In the Valiant's war room, the humans prepared for the next phase, an attack into Harak's territory itself. Not just to push them back, but to make sure they never returned. Serena looked at the star map. "Time to show them," she said, "what shadows really look like." The alien fleet hung in the black void like wounded animals, their hulls scarred from the brutal campaign. They had fought with everything they had, but it was clear now. Without the humans, the galaxy would have been lost. Admiral Kavor stood on the bridge of the Varelian flagship, his tendrils trembling. The battle reports were worse than expected. Every alien faction in the coalition had suffered heavy casualties, yet one fleet remained almost untouched: the humans. On the other side of the holographic table, Admiral Reyes leaned forward, his face calm but sharp. His uniform was still smudged from the last boarding operation. "They're not retreating," Reyes said, tapping the star map where the enemy's massive dreadnought loomed like a steel mountain. "They're coming for the heart of the fleet." Kavor's eyes widened. "That's suicide! Their engines are running hot, their supply lines are gone, they have no escape route." Reyes smirked. "That's exactly why they're dangerous. A cornered beast is the most deadly." A low hum filled the human command deck as the Deathworlder armada prepared to move. Massive carriers shifted formation, battleships angled their main guns, and swarms of smaller strike craft began their launch sequences. The enemy advances from the viewports. The alien dreadnought filled the void. Its hull was covered in batteries, each capable of tearing a cruiser in half. Plasma storms rolled over its surface, giving it a ghostly glow. It was less a ship and more a floating fortress. The alien crews around Kavor whispered in fear. No one had ever faced one of these dreadnoughts head-on and survived, but the humans didn't seem afraid. In fact, they were smiling. Human plan on the USS Vengeance, Captain Sarah Cole gave her orders with crisp precision. "All ships, Delta Strike formation. Dreadnought's shields are heavy on the bow, but weaker on the aft. We hit it from 3 vectors. Make them guess which one is the kill shot." "Understood, Captain," replied her XO. "And if they guess right?" Cole grinned. "Then we make them regret it." The human fleet split apart like shards of glass. Some ships dove straight toward the dreadnought, firing relentlessly to draw its fire. Others vanished into the dark, engines cold, riding silent toward their attack positions. Cavor, watching from his flagship, couldn't believe what he was seeing. They're breaking formation. That's madness. The dreadnought will pick them off. Reyes shook his head. You're still thinking like prey. First contact. The dreadnought opened fire. Beams of white-hot plasma lanced through the void, tearing apart asteroids like paper. Several human ships took hits, but instead of retreating, they accelerated, charging headlong into the storm. One destroyer, the USS Iron Will, flew so close to the dreadnought's guns that its hull turned red from heat. It fired a spread of torpedoes point blank before being torn apart in a blinding flash. The explosion ripped open a chunk of the dreadnought's armor, revealing glowing mechanical innards. First blood, Reyes said quietly. Boarding the beast, then, came the part that no alien had ever dared to try. Boarding a dreadnought during battle. The USS Revenant, a stealth corvette, darted into the hole the Iron Will had made. It was small enough to slip inside the dreadnought's inner structure. Its Marines, humans in heavy exosuits, poured out into the corridors, guns blazing. They moved like predators through the tight metal tunnels, cutting down enemy crew. No fear, no hesitation. Captain Cole's voice came over comms. Keep them busy inside. We'll crack them from the outside. The turning point, for 20 brutal minutes, the fight raged. Alien dreadnought cannons shredded space. Human ships punched through gaps in the shields, and Marines sabotaged the massive reactor from within. Then came the signal. "This is Revenant," a Marine's voice crackled. "Charges planted. Reactor is primed. Get clear." Cole didn't hesitate. All ships, pull back now. The humans retreated in a tight arc, keeping their guns hot to cover the Marines' extraction. The dreadnought tried to pursue, but its engines sputtered. Shields flickered, lights dimmed, and then, in one blinding flash, the dreadnought was gone, torn apart by its own reactor. Aftermath. The void was silent again. Debris floated where the dreadnought had been. The enemy fleet, seeing their flagship destroyed, broke formation and fled into the dark. On every alien ship in the coalition, crews stared at their view screens in stunned disbelief. They had just witnessed the impossible. Reyes turned to Cavor, his voice calm. "You called for help. We answered." Cavor's voice was shaky. "You didn't just answer. You saved the galaxy," Reyes smiled faintly. "That's what we do." A new era days later, the coalition gathered to honor the fallen. Human ships stood alongside alien ones in the ceremonial formation. The losses had been great, but the galaxy still stood. For the first time, alien leaders began to understand what Deathworlder truly meant. It wasn't just about surviving on a harsh planet. It was about fighting with a ferocity no enemy could match. It was about refusing to give up, no matter the odds. In the shadows of the Great War Memorial, Cavor looked at the human officers and made a silent vow. Never again would the galaxy doubt them. Because when the universe cried for help, Deathworlders answered.